Adam, we've talked a lot on this podcast about, one of the things that the offshores do extremely well. And look, we're not going to, while we're advocates for legalized sports betting, we're not going to sit here and try to say that these guys that have these, decades head starts, 20 years head starts, don't do things well and don't understand how to acquire customers and stuff like that. And one of the things they do extremely well is market themselves. And what they have done is figured out how to tap into these local markets, send out localized content, and get credited for it. It's free advertising. It's free marketing for them, and they do it really, really well. Maybe something that happened here over the last couple of days might actually eat into that a little bit.
So the deal and the news peg to this is that FanDuel and the Associated Press now have an agreement for the Associated Press, which is the largest distributor of content for all forms of journalists in the country, whether we're talking about newspapers, radio, television. Associated Press copy is ubiquitous throughout the country, and so internationally as well. But specific to this deal, FanDuel will now be the legal odds provider that the Associated Press uses. So why is that so important right now? Local news is shrinking everywhere. Content production at the local level is shrinking everywhere. The reliance upon AP content is only growing in the United States. And so the reach of this deal has the potential to be huge. Why are we talking about it? I'm going to put the usual caveats at the beginning of this for those out there in sports betting Twitter world. They will ignore it. They will roll past it. They'll pretend I never said any of this. We are not saying that the offshore market should be shut down. We believe that there is a place in the world for the offshore market. Specific to this sort of discussion, though, there is massive confusion among most journalists about what is a legal sports book and what is an offshore illegally operating sports book. They can't tell the difference. When an offshore has .lv at the end of their website, the average person thinks, well, .lv, they're based out of Vegas. Obviously, those of us inside the bubble know that is not the case. And beyond that, regulators in Nevada and elsewhere go to pains to make sure they are only offering markets on verifiable outcomes, right? They try to keep it to things that are very black and white, things where inside information can really not swing the outcome to the point where someone can manipulate the market in any significant way. Well, look at what a lot of these press releases that go out are about. It's about who will be the next host of Jeopardy, who will be so-and-so's next boyfriend. These are things that would never appear in the regulated market, but yet they get huge headlines among media.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting here trying to, there are little things that can be done where, like you said, we're not trying to get things shut down. We're not trying to. However, free advertising, the DraftKings, the FanDuels, the PointsBets, the BetMGMs, and the stuff of the world, they're paying massive licensing fees to be able to operate within these states. They are paying a ton of money to try to acquire customers and all of that. And so, when these sites, I mean, there are a couple of them who are really, really good at it, who will cater content down to a city and send it to all of that city's beat writers. And Dustin, within minutes, we see it popping up all over our Twitter feeds and stuff like that. They make it very easy. They make it very simple for these guys to basically just go in and use that stuff. And so there's at least a sliver of hope here that maybe some of that marketing, some of that, the low-hanging fruit for these guys will at least be taken care of by this deal with the AP.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope. Where I always start with this, and I think Adam can attest to it too, is there's no comp for using offshore sports books in traditional print online media. Like these are companies, whatever, we can quibble over, like we'll get arguments that they're actually operating legally. That's not true. Yeah. Obviously the New York story we just talked about, but there's no comp for journalists citing something that is operating legally as a source for something going on, especially next to legal and regulated sports books that are operating increasingly across the country. And they're not really interested in the content for like what you can bet. They're interested in the odds as content, right? As content that people want to consume. That is interesting. That is why the offshores do it. That's why people write about it, because it's interesting content. And so for me, it starts normalizing, right? You start seeing FanDuel odds and you can quibble again with whether they should have exclusive odds or they should just be they should have a deal, whatever. It's I think
exactly that's a tangent. That's tangent to what the main point is.
Who cares? The point is this starts normalizing regulated sports betting in the United States. You start seeing FanDuel as the source for AP content. Other people start doing this, and I hope. I mean, I bang this drum. I see it, and I sometimes I call it out, or I suggest, hey, you're in a state where that has the legal odds. I know somebody sent you this to you, but here are the sports books in your state that are offering these odds, and you could find this information yourself whenever you want to, and also then point people to something that is legally operating in your jurisdiction. So this has been a really frustrating thing for me, and it is like Adam said, totally about education. It's about again I still don't know what the percentage of people who just think Supreme Court ruling. Sports betting is legal everywhere. You don't care what operator it is. You see sports betting, that's legal now. That's what a lot of people still think, and this starts us down the path. I applaud this deal from that perspective, that we're starting to get to a point where this is not normalized in media, just citing sports books that are not operating legally in the United States.
And Adam, I also don't want people to take the wrong thing away from this either. We're not calling these journalists lazy. I don't know if a lot of these guys know any better. You know what I'm saying? So like the educational process here, like Dustin saying, kind of like the normalization of it being one of the books that is legal and regulated within the various states and stuff. I mean, I saw just a couple of days ago, right? Literally 2 days ago, I forget which book it was, whatever, but it was one of the offshores. The Broncos season win total is yada yada yada, and it was a guy who's a writer for one of the newspapers in Denver, right? And so I'm like, you have a jillion legal sports books at your disposal. Literally, you got like 30 different books that you could like pick from, and you're using this. And again, I don't hold him responsible for that, and I don't think he's lazy or anything. I just don't know if a lot of these guys really and truly kind of understand and realize what's going on with all that. So if at least there is some normalization for them to look to what is available within their states, I think it's at least a step in the right direction.
Put it this way, Matt. If you are a newspaper journalist who's been writing about a team for 20 years, and hey, if you've managed to keep a journalism job for 20 years, good for you, because that's not an easy thing to do today. But if you've been getting releases from these companies over the last decade, over the last 2 decades, if they've been sending you content forever, why would you think it's any different pre-2018 and post-2018? It's the same sports book that's been sending you something forever, right? It could be the same name, real or imagined, on that release that's coming in, and know the difference. Of course, you would never blame anybody for that. You would never say, oh, why aren't you doing your research? No, the confusion was created a long time ago. It wasn't intended to be confusion with the legal market until more recently, right? I mean, there was no confusion with the legal market for a long time, unless you're trying to confuse things with Las Vegas. And so, no, there's no blame being cast here.